So, you're building a Mustang, right? Or rebuilding a Mustang. It could be a 65, 6, 7, 8, 9, 70, whatever. And you're trying to find the best parts for your car. The questions are, do I get Dynacorn? Do I get CJpony? Do I buy from this vendor? Do I buy from that vendor? And I want to try to answer some of those questions for you. Now in this video, I am building or rebuilding the Slither Cobra Jet. If you've seen the other videos in this series, you already know I'm dealing with a very rusty car, or I was dealing with a very rusty car, and we are salvaging parts from the original car and using new parts from various vendors. So I get asked a lot of questions about this stuff. Which panel do you prefer? Which piece or which whatever? And you know, the answer can be all over the place. Sometimes you can say this vendor gives me the best XYZ, and you can say sometimes this vendor gives me the best ABC, right? So I'm going to show you some of these panels that we're using and do a little comparison between the original panel that I may have and some of the other panels or repair panels that I have on hand. Hopefully this will give you some insight into your project and give you some idea as to which way you want to go with this stuff. Let's take a look at what I'm working on. Now currently I am working on putting this side on to the floor pan just like I did with the other side. So in order to do that, I mock up pieces. I'm test fitting wheelhouses, quarter panel, I'm actually test fitting the tail panel. I've got the cross piece up here for the windshield. I've got the original Firewall, parts of that in place, and I have the cowl pieces up above, test fitting and test fitting and test fitting. Along with that, I have some various other panels. Now these were provided to me by the owner. These are patch panels or 80% skins like you would see at CJclassics, and that's what this is. This is a CJclassic. They claim, I think they claim, that these are the same ones that are made by Dynacorn, but I don't know for sure. You can check into that if you like. Here's another panel. You can see right on the panel, CJclassics, right? And that is an 80% skin. Up here we have a quarter panel. This quarter panel was bought at NPD. So this is the box that it came in. And there is the part number to show you YW6267LH, and it has MS69 there on the bottom. If you come over to this side, I could show you the box itself, and there is the NPD label. There's another label down here, tells you more about it, gives you some other numbers. That is the left quarter panel. The right quarter panel is Dynacorn. You can tell by the silver weld-through primer, but that is definitely a Dynacorn panel, as is the whole side piece. So I don't have anything to compare with that, and the floor pan assembly. So just get that out of the way right now. Up here I have a deck filler panel. Now I have the box that came in. I will show you that. I have this tail panel, which I think is a CJ part. It wasn't in a box when I got it. It was already out, but I do believe that is a CJ panel. Same with this left-hand quarter extension. And then on the right side, we have a Dynacorn part that would go in that location. Along with that, I have that tail panel, and I have this tail panel. Now this one, you can see it is a flat black color, and it came in this bag. So it has a Dynacorn part number on it. You can see it right there. And then it has this number on it as well. Now what's odd about this, when I look at this, is it doesn't have weld-through primer on it. That has me kind of curious, because I've seen it before and I've pointed out in videos that I've done on other cars that I have received fenders that were in the same box that you would get from any other vendor, but it had a Dynacorn sticker on it. So I'm wondering if this isn't just a repackaged part, and I may do a comparison from this tail panel to that tail panel. Now you can see this also has the EDP coating on it, so it's shinier looking. And then same with this quarter panel as well. Along with that, I have the original driver or passenger side quarter panel, and I'm going to show you some differences that I found between all of these panels and what you may want to be looking for. Before we get too far along, let me show you this. I have most of the original Firewall still in place. It is clamped in. And to do a quick comparison between that original panel and the Dynacorn panel, you can see everything looks pretty similar. So you have the same openings here that you would have here. You have this semi-square opening that looks a little more rectangular. That one looks a little more square. You have this opening, which I believe is for the parking brake, and that is there as well. You can see the original panel, they used rectangular nuts, where Dynacorn has used round, well, weld-in nuts or nutserts, however you want to look at those. Moving along, you have this little bracket right here. I'm not sure what that does, but that is not on the Dynacorn panel. You have that hole, same thing. You have those two holes, same thing. Here you have these little studs that are on the original panel, which may have held a clip of some sort, but I don't see those at all on the Dynacorn piece. There are some holes that correspond, but there are other holes that are here that do not. So you can see the big drop from that to there. Well, that drop to there is pretty short. This one down to here is pretty long. You have these humps, which are also on the original panel. You have the knockout here, which is still in the original panel. It's not in the Dynacorn, it's already opened up. That mount hole there, there, and there, they all appear to be in those locations. Up here you have two holes in the original panel, which are not in the Dynacorn panel. And then you have this hole in the Dynacorn panel, which is not in the original. So I'm not sure what that hole is there for. You have the two punch outs for the heater core. Those are also in the original panel. And one more knockout here, which is still in the original and not in the Dynacorn. In the process of me doing all of this, I'm going to salvage the bottom half of this Firewall to patch to the original, just to try to keep as much of this there as we can. So along with that, I've already shown in previous videos the air boxes that go here, that we are patching those in and making it solid. I've already fixed those. Again, this side is not welded on. That's why you see these pieces of 1-inch square tubing. That's to hold everything together whenever I was working on it so it wouldn't come apart. I do have the header panel mocked up, and my measurements are all really good. I'm very happy with everything. But let me start showing you some of these differences between all of these panels. Okay, so this CJclassic, basically I'm going to say don't buy this. I would consider this a patch panel or a crash panel. What I mean by that is this panel is meant for cutting pieces out of it maybe and using it to fix up your possibly original panel. The things that I found with this is it feels like it is an overlay panel. And what I mean by that is if you take this panel and you put it on top of the original panel, it basically fits over everything. I mean, this is overlapping the original back seam. This is overlapping the front. You can see that, right? It's overlapping the wheel arch all the way through. That is the original arch, and this basically sits over top of it. I can squeeze this up in there. I know I got everything crooked at the moment, but this will fit inside of that. So to me, that is a no-go. I don't know who makes this panel for sure. Like I said, I think they had said that Dynacorn makes this, but I really doubt it. Looking at the lines, they aren't as crisp as some of the other panels that I'll show you, so I really don't put any faith in that part of it. Also, I have here a very old patch panel. Now, what you'll notice quick is this transition right here. So the quarter panel, which is this section, comes down. Let's just say I put this right here. This comes down, and then it angles back up and flattens out. This one does not. You can see that clearly. And then this shape here as well, that's flat, whereas this dishes in. Now this is a decent patch panel, but it's not as good as the other pieces that I'm going to show you in just a minute. However, I would rather use this piece than this piece. Overall, I mean, this is decent metal, but it's not really meant to me to be used as a full patch. I'll point out that there is no cutout for the vent, and there's no cutout for your side marker light. Big problem when it comes to all that. This panel, obviously it's original. You can see the lines and how well things flow with that. The bottom of this is rusted off, but you can still see, here's that angle that I was talking about, where it goes back up and then flattens back out. Another thing that we ran into with this panel when these were shipped from CJclassic or CJpony, they came bent. So I actually have two of these panels. They were bent during shipping. Another thing you'll notice down here at the bottom is it has this extra metal hanging out for no reason whatsoever. Same way here. It's like they didn't bother stamping it all the way. And the other thing is this angle here should be more up. So whenever you look at the quarter panel, as it comes down to meet the rocker, it has to go back up because of this angle right here. So this all has to get reworked. This would have to get cut off, this cut off, that rebent to get it back up into the shape that it needs to be. And so this isn't compatible with a quick and easy repair, which none of it is easy, but it isn't the panel that I would recommend getting for fixing something up. Now, we look at this panel, and again, this is the one that I picked up at NPD. This is very nice. The lines fit very close to the inner structure that is Dynacorn. Even meeting this surface, it's very, very close. The front edge, all this is very close as well. I have a little bit of issue here. I'm gonna have to massage this to make it overlap the B-pillar. As you can see, it does have the vent opening that we're looking for. And then down here, what I did find is this angle was good. It was actually angled up. It's very close. I don't know if I can show the inside there. In fact, it's a little higher than it needs to be. The only issue that you run into is this corner right here. That has to be trimmed out further because the wheelhouse is sitting there, and when you come in, this wants to hit the wheelhouse. In fact, I need to trim a little bit more. You can see it pivots on there because there needs to be a cutout for that to go up in. But otherwise, this fits really nice. The shape of it, really nice, fits the wheelhouse like it should. I have a couple of clamps in there, but there's no gaps, which is really what you're looking for. This all is holding everything nice and snug. Very happy with how this looks and how it fits. Now I'm going to show you something underneath here in just a second. As I mentioned earlier with the other panels, this has the angle. It kicks back up, flattens out, and then comes down. Same way in the back, kicks up, flattens out, and comes back down. This is shaped almost exactly what it needs to be. Almost exact. So I'm happy with that. This angle here, if you can see, it actually is like two angles. It starts there, comes out, and then transitions in. So when you look at this panel, this is just a meh. This is just a mess. Doesn't do what you'd expect it to do. Again, scratch that one. Back here, this all fits the tail panel pretty much like it should. Happy with that, or tail panel extension, I guess. The thing we always run into is these holes. So this one is not lining up with that hole. I'm not worried about that. I can address that. That is the mount point for the extension. So not a problem there. Everything else really close. There may be some trimming that needs to happen around the tail panel to make everything tuck in. Not a big deal there. Up here, this seems to fit really nice. There's a little bit, you know, a little bit of overlap here, which you have to deal with. Might have to open this flare up a little more to get it to tuck in. Up here, where the deck filler piece fits, this, I tried putting it underneath. It's not meant to be underneath. It's meant to be on top, and a lot of that has to do with water, the flow of water. So it seemed to actually fit better going underneath, but I'm not going to do that. I will put it on top. We'll have to rework these flanges a little bit to get those square, but that's going to fit really nice. And it does the same thing on the Dynacorn panel. Doesn't quite match like you think it should. And again, a little massaging there and a little massaging right there, which won't take much at all. The other things that I'll point out, these lines on this panel from NPD are really good. I mean, they're really good. I don't see many flaws in this. This shape is accurate. I did feel there's a little bit of a transition, something going on right here, but you can't see it very well, but I can feel it with my hand. So I know it's there. Again, real nice lines. Everything seems to line up like it should. I don't feel that hump or anything there. This is nice and smooth. This is consistent all the way around. And I'll point out that on this side, Dynacorn has done a heck of a job. This panel is very, very accurate to the original shape. You can see it's a little more, hopefully you can see it's a little more angled, a little crisper, and it even flows back into this area here and does a really nice job. So very, very pleased with how this looks. This line is great. Of course, we do have the cutout for the side marker. And let me show you this. On this side, the bottom edge of this almost matches perfect to the drop-off panel. I rarely see that happen. And so I'm very happy with that. This is a little out of place right now, I think partly because I'm fighting with this filler piece and I can't push that up. So I think it's going to match very nice once I get to that point. On the other panel with the Dynacorn, again, it fits really nice. The Dynacorn does have a little flange sticking out under it. I'm not sure why they've done that, but it's there, and I may end up trimming that off. So moving forward on the Dynacorn quarter panel, it fits like a glove. All of this is super nice. This all fits really nice. Up here, the B-pillar, everything fits, I mean, fantastic. The bottom edge here, dead on money. I mean, I couldn't get that any closer if I tried. Even this location right here where the quarter meets the rocker panel, all that is dead on. I don't even have any clamps in here, but all of that, there's no gaps. So the wheelhouse fits perfect. I'm very excited about that and how all that's fitting together. Now, these tail panels, and I'll probably have to take this apart to do a more of a side-by-side comparison, but I've already pointed out how this one has the EDP coating and that one has basically, I don't know what that is. I don't think it's EDP. It almost is like just a regular primer that is sprayed on there. So I'll have to pull that off and do a comparison. But overall, I can tell you I have very little to complain about with this NPD panel. Obviously nothing to complain about with the Dynacorn panel, and everything else is fitting. Again, the goal at this point is to get the side of the car welded on and continue doing the mock-up and make sure everything's going to line up the way it should. So let me pull off the tail panel and we'll get a look at that in comparison to this one. Okay, let's take a look at these tail panels. This is the one I had on the car, the shiny one, and I didn't notice until now that it is a CJclassic. There's some other numbers over here. We have a YW-6203 and then M/S69. Okay, I have that panel, I have the Dynacorn panel, and I have what's left of the original panel. Quick observation, I'm going to say that these two panels, while they're the same overall, are probably not made in the same place. I know we speculate on that stuff. The panels are slightly different. Let me show you some of that. So on the Dynacorn piece, we have a series of spot welds up here. There's a couple there, 1, 2, 3. This one has 2, this one has 2. Over here in the corner, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and down the side, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's one down in the bottom, one sorta in the corner here, and then there's a couple spot welds that hold the inner structure. Same thing there, there, there. But you can see the patterns are different, and the way the spot welds are made are different as well. It's the same situation over here. We've got 2. This one we have, it's like 3 up on top above that light opening. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's a variance there that I'm going to say doesn't just happen. It looks like that would be 2 different facilities that would be making these things. Now, overall, everything else looks pretty much the same. The pattern, the depth here. You've got some tooling marks on this one. Not a big concern. This one from Dynacorn, you can still see the tooling marks. So very similar in that aspect. Now, here's where it gets a little more interesting. First of all, let me turn these over and show you some of the details. When I look at the inside of these, what I find is the Dynacorn one, a lot of these holes have a flange on them, or like a metal from where they punched it. So a lot of these have that leftover metal kind of hanging everywhere on the inside of this, even where the key lock goes. I don't know how well you can see that, or if you can see it, but there's definitely metal hung up there. All of these holes where they punch through, same situation. On the CJclassic, it has very little of that. There's none on these holes. These are all smooth. The key lock is relatively smooth as well. So that's a difference. This one, this metal here looks like it's just been a little more roughed in, let's say. This has a more kind of finished feel to it on the CJ. However, some other differences. Let's, if I stand this up. The CJ has this extra little flange here. Why? I don't know. I don't know if they intended for that. This, the Dynacorn, does not have that little flange. So that's just something to look at as you're looking at these. I think the angles are just a little bit different as well. This one appears to be kind of higher overall. And you can see that very well. It just seems a little bit higher. Another big difference is on the Dynacorn, this section is cupped over, where this one is flanged up. So that's a big difference. This is kind of angled. This one is more kind of up. Now, that could come into play when you're trying to put things together and things are not interacting very well. So just make note of that. And that is consistent on both sides. I also will say that when I do this comparison, and this is frustrating for all of us, you've got these brackets welded on for the bumper. Well, you would think that when you put this on, and I have the bottom flange here mated against the inner piece, I have a huge gap. And I mean huge. I can stick my finger in here and have a gap between the bolt mount point locations. I don't know how well that's showing up. There's about probably 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch space between there, and it is on both sides. It is the same thing. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Whether these brackets are welded in the wrong spot, I don't know. So that's something we'll have to address later on. I don't know how they should have some sort of tooling that positions these and puts them in the right location. But what do I know? Here, I've done a comparison with this panel as well, and it's the same distance. These are that shape is the same from, you know, this location here. So let's continue on. I have these two pieces. Now again, this one's Dynacorn, and this, I don't know. I'm going to guess CJ, but I don't know for sure. There's some numbers on it. And when you put it on this panel, it fits pretty good up here. All this area fits pretty good. Come across, and of course down here, for whatever reason, these, they just don't fit. So this has to get reshaped to make it fit that lower section. If I do this on the Dynacorn panel, same situation. It fits okay up here at the top, comes around. It wants to fight a little bit in the middle right here. I'm not sure why. And then down here, same thing. It wants to hit in this corner. And that is the, I don't know what brand. I have no idea. The Dynacorn piece, bring it on to this one, same situation. Hits in this corner, that's gonna need trimmed. I could trim it, but I'm not ready to do that because I'm not to the point where I'm actually installing this stuff. So it doesn't fit as well. And I think part of that here is this flange sticking up and rubbing on the inside. You can see there's some marks where it's actually hitting. So that's a little bit of a concern. On this one, it fits better. You can see it drops in better and fits closer to the shape of the tail panel. Let me show you this. If I take these panels, now granted this is the original panel or what's left of it, and it still has the pieces on it that I'm trying to cover up here, but it does the same thing. It hits in this corner, but it's the Dynacorn. That's, I mean, it's close. It's close. A little bit of a cutout down here at the bottom, and I think that will be fine. If I take the other brand and I do the same thing over here, it also continues to hit in that lower corner, but otherwise it should be pretty close. Again, I can't press it all the way on because of all the pieces still left of the original rusty metal. Now, here's something else. On the original tail panel, if I tilt this up, there is no flange. So the Dynacorn one mimics that better. I am kind of curious. You can see there's some shim still in between hanging on to this piece of metal. Still some shims there. So if I were to take this original panel and put it up against, if I can, man, it's pretty rough to deal with. Yep, same gap. Same gap. Not sure why. So there's something going on in that situation between those, or where those mount brackets are. The conclusion is, I want to take parts of both of those and mix them together. I like that this doesn't have this flange up on top here. I like that that one has these folded over more. And I'm still not committed. I will be doing a more involved test fit later, but the point of this section of this video is just to show you that there are differences between different manufacturers at times. Sometimes they're all the same, and you just put them in different boxes. But I can definitely tell you these were made in different facilities, or at least assembled in different facilities. They may have been stamped at one location, but they're definitely not overall the same. I need to get some stuff welded on to this car. I have all of the front section welded in. It's solid. I like it. I did have the cross brace put in, the header, and I measured everything to make sure the angles and distances were all the same. So I'm very happy with all of this front section. The rear section here, I did not weld the outer portion of the B-pillar. Reason for that is I'm going to be putting in the original B-pillar. So this is going to have to come out. And I just wanted to get the inner structure welded in so it can't go anywhere, and that's what I did. So this will have to come back out, or at least this outer portion will. Now, I'll show a couple things. I know I've said I'm happy with this quarter panel, and I am. This lines up where it should. I even did some test fitting with the roof. On the car, Roger, hindsight 6/7, he come by last night and we set the roof in place and everything lined up like it should. There was a little bit of gap in this area, but that's nothing. Just dolly it in and it's shaped nice. We put the rain gutters in. Everything fit the way it should. Now, what I'm running into back here, I've done all the measuring. I put in the deck filler panel, so the gaps are consistent. Everything measures out the way it should. And I had to do a little bit of trimming right here. Now the situation is, Dynacorn makes these panels and they're very close to what came in the car. But there's still some, you know, variances or variables within what they make. And what I mean by that is this section here, this inner structure, if it is not placed exactly the same as, say, this one, then some of your measurements could be thrown or be off slightly. I'm going to try to point some things out, but let me show you one thing that is bugging me on both of these quarter panels that I'll probably have to find some way to address. Up here. Now, what is going on is have this joggle shape where the roof panel is going to sit in, and it flushes into this area, right? But they created this joggle that messes up this fitment. So I'm not sure why it's like that. The original panel, this all fits flush. If you look at this one, it's not as pronounced. It's a much smaller gap right here, but it's still a concern because this should be tight against this inner panel. They didn't do anything to modify this shape to make it compensate for that. So on the Dynacorn one, very, very nice, very close. But this one, the one I got from NPD, you can see this has a big drop, very big drop. So I may end up having to cut this and eliminate that little drop so that this section can come down. If I take this pair of vice grips off, you can see it just gets wider. So if I put them back on this side, this gets fairly tight. This can still come down some more. It's actually, there's a little bump section in here that's catching on, but you can see what I'm talking about. So that's probably the only real gripe I have with the quarter panel. Now I want to show you something as I was talking about the fitment of these pieces. So if you look right here, you can see how much of a gap there is. I mean, I could put my finger in that space right there. So I come over to the other side and there's no gap at all. And it makes me wonder, what's the variance? What's the variable? Is this something that's going to affect other things later? The thing is, I have measured everywhere. I did a measurement, let's say from this corner right here down to the back of the floor pan. I've done measurements from this corner down. I've done measurements from the wheelhouse back. You can't change a lot of this. Like, as an example, this is the shape for the wheelhouse. The wheelhouse is positioned exactly where it needs to be, so you can't move that. You also can't move the quarter panel. Now that it's in location and it lines up perfectly on the wheelhouse, that dictates exactly where your B-pillar is going to be based on this assembly, right? But all my measurements are good. I can measure anywhere from the front to the back, B-pillar, the quarter panel, all of that stuff is on the money. No issue there. I just see these things that kind of throw me because I'm all about symmetry and how everything needs to relate back and forth. Even to the point where with this situation right now, where this gap is, and I can't change this. I cannot, because that shape is dictated by the inner structure. It also would mess with the roof line, and it would also mess with the position of this structure fore and aft, which would mess with the roof. Okay, now none of this is really going to hurt anything. The car is going to look good. It's just some of these anomalies that are throwing me just a little bit. Again, I like symmetry. Same thing over here. You can't change the shape or dimensions of the wheelhouse, the outer, everything's attached to the quarter, and the B-pillar. So all this is going to remain. I just have to do some customizing, as is normal. You know, you run into these situations, and you just have to figure out what can I adjust or change to make it work the way it should. Otherwise, I'm very happy with how this is looking, and I will be continuing the process. Obviously, I will need to strip down the header panels, get those treated. Obviously, I will have those anchored in and get the roof in place, but I can't put the roof on until I have the quarters on, and there's still a lot of things that have to happen. I'm swapping out that B-pillar, so you understand where I'm coming from. There's still a lot to do, but as a whole, I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Well, that'll be it for this video. You know, I wanted to have a lot more done, but it was a short week. Really couldn't get as much done as I wanted to, and I had other things that I had to deal with on the side. I shared some information on sheet metal, things that I found that were good, things that I found that were bad. Hopefully that helps you if you're trying to make a decision on getting sheet metal for your project. Now, if you're also looking for other information, I have thousands of other videos on YouTube. Some are on a 65, 66 Mustangs. I have one with the convertible known as Brooklyn Pony. I have some with the 65 that is a light blue Mustang that I did a full floor pan install in that car. I also have some on the Mystique Mustang, which is a really nice project. I enjoyed doing that one. And I also have a series on my 68 Mustang known as Jade. Tons of videos out there. So if you can't find information anywhere else, check my channel and check my playlist. As it is, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my patrons who continue to support me. If you are interested in becoming a patron, there is a link in the description below. There are also links to various tools that I show on my channel, and also an Amazon link. Help me out if you can. But that'll be it for now, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.